Everyone, welcome to the European Masters play-in stage. My name is Koolein, and I almost went fully Dutch there. And with me on the desk today is Omar, Woong, Van Vinkt, and also Mart's Chronicler Miosa. Gentlemen, welcome to the desk. Welcome to the first day of the European Masters. And, well, for some of us, the first time European Masters more is for you, as Mr. Chronicler, the person who has done the UKLC, has done the Benelux, and has done a lot of things. But this is the first time that you're actually going to be on the European stage.
Yeah, I'm really excited because EUM is basically like ever since its inception, like it's been such an amazing tournament to watch, and being able to, be part of it is very, very exciting. And I'm also really hyped because we get to finally see the teams that I've casted this entire split, so like for the last 3 months, if they actually hold up or not. And that's what I'm mainly going to be looking out for.
I mean, for you as an ex-player, this is something different. Like, this is the next big thing after the ERL.
Yeah, this is your big shot. This is the time to prove yourself, especially in these planes. Just get out of these planes, get into the group stage, meet these big teams, and actually get a spot into these finals. And we've seen players from these European Master Finals get into the LEC.
Yeah, because these are your tomorrow's LEC players. Like, they should be your tomorrow's LEC players. Think of players who already are in there. Think of Karzi, who's actually doing really well now with the Mad Lions. Dan, who's playing in top lane for Misfits, for example. But they all went through this entire process that was called European Masters. Let me explain to you how the European Masters works and how this playing stage works, because we're starting off today with that playing stage. We're starting off with 16 teams from all different regions. We'll be finding it out in the double round robin best of one. On top of that, like after this stage, there will be 2 teams who will be coming out this group stage. They'll be falling up onto a knockout stage where they will play a best of 3 amongst each other. The first seeds will be playing the second seeds, and the winners of those best of 3s, they will be moving on to the European Masters main event. That main event will also be a double round robin best of 1 among 16 teams. And those 16 teams will have 2 winners in each groups. Those 2 winners from that group will go into a single elimination best of 3 bracket to finally end up into that semifinal, which is a best of 5. And they will be fighting not only for that European Masters title, but they will all be fighting for a big cash prize of 40,000 euros, which is double from last year. There has been some changes. 75,000 euros was the prize total last year, and this year it's going to be 150,000 euros. That is a lot of money, Chronicler.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned before, like seeing that the prize pool has improved so much also gives us a sign like how serious you need to take this tournament, because Mad Lions, like if you see the development that they've made in like such a short amount of time, that can happen to the team that is going to win this European Masters. Like it can go very quickly in the World of League of Legends, and doing well here is all you really need to do.
Yeah, Mad Lions doing so well in the LEC. Does that mean that Mad Lions Madrid, who will be playing actually in the first game, we'll have to do the same thing here, Woong?
Well, of course, there are 2 different teams. We've seen the coaching staff from the Mad Lions Madrid. They still have Aranea in it, Falco, also a known name. But they also have Werlyb in the top lane, who's been a player in the scene for as long as I can remember. And he's been playing in the LEC before, has played on the big stage before. They will rely on Werlyb a lot.
Yeah, let's have another look at those groups, because we have 4 groups of 4 teams, which means it's a total of 16. Looking at these groups, which teams are the big favorites, Chronicler?
Well, you can go with your Game Allegiance, your Kick Esports, your Mad Lions Madrid, as you mentioned previously. But I'm going to be looking at some of the lesser known teams. Obviously, I'm going to stand my Benelux teams, Defusekids, Sector 1, please don't let me down. But I'm also curious to see how smaller teams like Raccoon, teams like Viper Inc. from the Nordic region are going to be able to kind of deal with these powerhouse teams that everyone expects it to make out.
Do you think we're up for some upsets, Woong?
I think the most upset can happen in Group B, since they are like all similar level. There's no clear favorite in Group B. It's actually the group of life, I would say. Every team can make it out there, and we'll just look at that group to see which teams actually reinvent themselves maybe in this new patch. But mostly looking at the teams that can upset the big teams, it's not really sure that will happen.
Yeah, so Chronicler, you cast at the Benelux, the ERLs, the Dutch, and the Belgian League. Looking at the Defusekids in Sector 1, are they in a happy place right now?
I think both of them are. Sector 1, of course, coming off an undefeated split, which is insane. And I think that is actually something that is really important in a best-of-1 format, because the Defusekids looked good, but they also looked shaky in best-of-1 scenarios, as we see in the regular split, where they took a really big mid-season hit. They bounced back very effectively, but Sector 1 has survived the Belgian League. And if you're not familiar with the Belgian League, in the finals, we saw 2 Tarek Pike games, and we saw a Marcy funnel comp. So if you can stave off that kind of cheese, I'm positive for your best-of-1 chances.
Yeah, well, I'm going to direct this question to you, because we've talked about the teams, we've talked about the European Masters, but we need to talk about the players, because what we said, these are tomorrow's LEC stars. What players in the playing stage are actually popping out for you?
So going off the Benelux players first, I would think we'll watch at Sector 1 at night, especially in the mid lane. He's been such a strong player for a long time in this region, but he never had the chance to prove himself internationally. So this is his big shot, and he's known for playing a lot of carry champions. Then next up in that team, we also have Savior. And Savior played in the LSL, in the Russian league, and that was also a big part of teams winning there. But more importantly is that Bwipa also played with Knight, so previously mentioned, and they had such good synergy back then. Maybe it's time for Knight to step up and actually show himself, maybe get into the out of the playing stage, into the group stage, and prove that he is worthy to maybe challenge other players in the mid lane.
Yeah, then you spoke to me before the show that you have a player in the play-ins which has the most insane KDA you've ever seen.
Well, it's not the most insane one, but the mid laner from Cyber Gaming actually has, let me look it up, 8.46. That is the highest KDA I saw from the playing stage players. And it was throughout the whole playoffs in this region. So this mid laner is sure one to look out.
Well, we've talked about teams. We have heard some players, but when do these players play? Let's have a look at the schedule for today on this stream. We're having 2 streams, actually, but today on this is a stream 1. Actually, we're going to see the following matches, starting off with the Defusekids versus Mad Lions Madrid, following up by Sector 1 and We Love Gaming Esports. The Defusekids playing again versus Kenty. Isuwa and Vipers Inc. will be fighting it out the game after that one. And then it's Sector 1 versus Kick Neosurf, which is going to be a bloody one, I think. And we'll end the day with Vipers Inc. and Aces ROG Elite. Yeah, Sector 1, Kick, Neosurf. That is a pretty interesting match. But before we get too deep into that, let's have a look at the Stream 2 schedule, because we have more games to show. That stream is to be followed on twitch.tv/GameLux. That is live right now as well. And there I have the games Gamer Legions versus Vipers, a Raccoon versus Electric Generation with that mid laner. I think, what was his name again? I'm sorry.
Mid laner is from Cyber Gaming and his name is Proker.
Oh, he's from Cyber Gaming. I thought it was Electric Generation. My bad. Then you have Aces RJ Elite versus Gamer Legion. We'll be fighting out there in the third game. Mad Lions Madrid for the win Esports. That's a little Spain versus Portugal action. And then Cyber Gaming versus Raccoon. That's Cyber Gaming with that high KDA, what Woong just talked about. And this is something actually Troubling talked a lot about. Pig Esports versus We Love Gaming, Chronicler.
Yeah, because Big Esports is one of those teams that you don't like. You can look at them as a team, like look at the players, look at their League of Legends. But I think what a lot of people love about Pig Esports is the fact that they really embrace like the wacky gaming side of European team, or like of esports in general. And I think that's, if you look at their social media, if you look at the icon, because it is just literally like a cute pig. Like I'd be enthusiastic about that as well. Whereas We Love Gaming, I think, is a team that's more expected to actually perform really well in terms of where they're going to finish in this tournament.
Yeah, looking at today's schedule, though, I'm actually the most excited for Sector 1 versus Kick Neosurf, because I think Kick Neosurf is actually the hardest opponent for Sector 1, and I think they really want to get out of the group, Woong.
Yeah, I think Kick is the big favorite in that group, but Sector 1 is here to prove themselves, of course, after that undefeated split. They want to show everyone that it's not just the Belgian League they can dominate, it's also the EU Masters they can dominate. But Kick is going to be a tough opponent for sure.
Chronicler, do you believe Sector 1 has it in them to defeat this kind of team?
I think it's going to be really telling like how this first game is going to go. I think Kick, as you said, is definitely the favorite in that group. I think the only option for Sector 1, because Sector 1, this is something they did a lot in their own playoffs. That was against Belgian League teams. Against slower teams, they were able to punish the early game like exceptionally and then snowball really hard. And Kick has been known to also play sometimes a bit slower. If they do that against Sector 1 and Sector 1 can actually execute, I'm positive. But if Sector 1 just leaves it at a normal pace, I think Kick's experience and team fighting is going to be too much for them.
So the playing stage and the entire European Masters will be played on patch 10.7, and that's something I want to touch upon. 10.7, we see Fiddle disabled, and we see Wukong actually enabled. That is actually a pretty interesting choice, because what changed about Wukong, Woong?
Yeah, Wukong changed a lot, especially his ultimate. You can now recast his ultimate after a couple of seconds. And that's like a real life changer for this champion, because beforehand he didn't have enough damage to actually carry a fight, but now he has the damage to carry a fight, but more importantly, he has the engage to start one. Especially paired up with champions like a Yuumi, he can survive like forever, and when he recasts his ultimate again, maybe caught someone off guard, a carry that's out of position, you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, Chronicler, we also see a slight Akali ultimate buff. Do you think that makes her a bit of a favorite, a bit of a comeback now?
I don't think it's going to be enough. I think the problem with Akali is like it's such a like on the edge of your seat champion. Like either you get fed and you like destroy everyone, or you get shred and you don't do anything. And I think that we might see teams pick it up, but I think it's a really big risk to take. And unless you're like an IC player, G2 still sometimes picks it up. If you hit every skill shot, it's still going to be strong. Then this buff will be relevant. But in general, I think it's not going to bring it back to the status that you used to have.
Then some flex potential we see coming back. We see Corki's package actually have a harder burn, a longer burn right now. That actually sounds pretty interesting. Woong, that Corki package, how does that go?
Well, we've seen in the LEC that the Corki Azir meta is back. Not everyone's favorite matchup in the mid lane, but they do scale into that late game. They're most proficient in those team fights where they can put out a lot of damage, a lot of DPS, actually sneak some Barons. Maybe we've seen that in the LCK with Azir especially. And those are the scaling mid lane matchup we are used to in professional play. So we'll just see if these EU Master teams agree to trade this mid lane matchup, or maybe another team goes at it another way, and we'll see some assassins maybe to try and shut down the Azir early game.
Yeah, some brief reminders about patch 10.7. Any champions that are worth mentioning as well, your Chronicler?
I think that if you look, I think Wukong might be permabanned. I don't know how to perform in scrims, of course. But I think the general opinion surrounding Wukong is that he's currently pretty overtuned because he's a great duelist. Like Woong said, he has a lot of power on its own, let alone when you combine him with synergistic champs. And it's also just a nuisance to play around because it's also a newer champion. So I think we might see him. Outside of that, maybe the phase rush buff for melee might bring stuff like Nasus back, but then you're looking at specific counter matchups, right? I don't think anything else is going to be super relevant if I'm looking at the changes now.
On priority sides, on the pick and ban, Woong, what champions are going to be pick and banned in priority?
Well, I think we'll see the Wukong ban for sure. Maybe some Pantheon bans as well, since we've seen some play in the jungle from him. But also Ezreal is still a very strong pick. Paired up with that Yuumi or any other weak side champion, he can play that weak side very well. But also a champion you can play around. And then Syndra, who's also still a strong flex pick in the mid lane, in this bottom lane. We've seen it before. Just ban a champion if you're not used to it, or if you cannot match the flex, of course. And we've seen some rise of Hatrixx support. Let's see how that fares. Maybe some teams picked it up in scrims and saw some success with it, and we'll see it here in the plains.
Yeah, we also see the less fasting Senna, actually. I think that's a big win because, let's be fair, that is not the most interactive lane I've ever seen. And I think that's actually everything we've talked about. But still, fasting Senna, is it still something teams would be able to pick up, your Chronicler?
I think maybe due to comfort. I do feel like the last nerf she received were like basically you get a 25% AD nerf to your passive. I think that should be too strong. I think that's like a really big one. I'm more curious about Ornn because Ornn, we've seen that he's still relevant and I think he still has a place in the meta, but he's not the menace that he used to be where you like perma first pick him or ban him on red side. And we do see counters now reliably emerge, and that is also due to Blade of the Ruined King that got changed a couple of patches ago.
All right, that's it for patch 10.7. I want to start talking about the game because we are just 5 minutes away from the first game of the European Masters playing stage. We'll be looking at the first game in Group C. It's going to be Defusekids versus Mad Lions Madrid. Well, if we just look at it on paper, that is a solid win for Mad Lions, you would say, Woong.
Yeah, it's a big mismatch here in the solo lanes as well, because you've seen Alois have success earlier in the planes, but now he's paired up against Werlyb, who's more experienced, knows how to play the weak side, unless that's what we expect of him. But he has been known to die a lot lately, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Chronicler, of course, this is your ERL, like the Dutch league. That is where the first seed from Defusekids came from. What kind of team is this?
So as a team that had some inconsistency issues during the season, they did win convincingly in the finals against PSV, who were kind of the favorites coming in at that show. And I feel like, although they've kind of shored up the weaknesses, because their mid-jungle duo used to have some issues mid-game in the split, if you're talking about the Defusekids, you're looking at Alois, who has represented the Netherlands, I think, every single EU Masters thus far in the top lane, and then Goose, the AD carry that, together with his support Nightmares, have been absolutely trashing most bot lanes. So it's like a top and bot lane, two-pronged attack that you can expect from the Defusekids.
Well, how does this match up against the Mad Lions? Because, like, the Mad Lions, again, they have been doing very well in the LEC, and now they're, we would say, like, their secondary team, Mad Lions Madrid. I think they are the great favorites in the playing stage, I would say.
I think I agree. Flakked and Prime have been shown also strong bot lanes as well. Maybe they get some coaching from Flacco or Renea specifically, but they've shown that they can actually manage some aggression in the bot lane, and that's something that Goose and Nightmares faltered against. If they don't get ahead in lane, they sometimes get into the mid game a bit clueless because they don't have a big lead from the laning.
Where do you think is the biggest gap in between lanes? Is that in the jungle? Is it in the mid lane? Where do we see the biggest mismatch?
I think we look at the mid lane Hatrixx, who's been playing very well for Mad Lions as well, and Chapapi, who has had a better last split because the first part of the split wasn't that great for him, but he managed to step it up in the playoffs, actually showed that his Azir is a very good pick at the moment. Maybe trading it for the Corki pick against Hatrixx would be the best solution, but I hope that the mismatch, I think the biggest mismatch is here in the mid lane. Chapapi will have to step it up against Hatrixx.
Yeah, and I think for some people, Chapapi actually rings some bells because, yes, indeed, he was the Xerath player against Fnatic Rising. I don't know if you still remember that one, Chronicler, but everybody was talking about the Xerath.
Yeah, and that was, of course, with the best bad luck shot caller we've seen in a long time, who is currently just coached his team in the LEC to a win against G2, is, of course, Kaspas, who's now an analyst for the main Mad Lions team. But yeah, that Xerath and the proactive way that they played that champion was something that a lot of teams, including Fnatic Rising, as you mentioned, had a really hard time with, but in the end, it wasn't enough.
Well, a lot of expectations on the Defusekids side. I'm going to ask you once more, Woong, the expectations for Mad Lions. Like, do you know anything about their play style?
Not specifically. I haven't watched too many games of them, but what I've heard about it is that they might be a bit slow in the early game, but once they get like tempo in it and they get it going, they won't drop the game. And it would be strange if they dropped any game at all in this group, I would say. I think they're also a clear favorite in this group. And the Defusekids will really have to step it up if they want to challenge Mad Lions in this laning phase in the beginning of the game, because that is where they are probably most vulnerable and where the Defusekids is most known for. So that's where they'll have to attack the Mad Lions here in this game.
Do you agree with this, Chronicler? Does this make sense to you?
I do. I'm mainly going to be looking at the bot lane because Flakked and Prime also have a tendency to play aggressive. Leona and Nautilus for Prime, which are also picks, especially the Nautilus that Nightmares likes. And then Flakked, who also plays Lucian, plays Aphelios. So there's a lot of overlap there. So I'm going to be looking at bot lane, especially with the hype that we had surrounding Goose coming into this tournament.
Yeah, we are just literally seconds away of the first game of the European Masters play. It's going to be the Defusekids versus Mad Lions Madrid. Yeah, guys, I'm going to ask you the predictions. I don't know if this is a tough one to do. Woong, I'm starting with you. Your prediction for the first game of the European Masters play in Group C?
I'm going with Mad Lions Madrid here.
Chronicler, are you going to stay true to your region?
I am. I'm a caster. I can take the loss. Defusekids going to stop.
We're going to see if that's going to happen. We're on our way. On the first game of the European Masters playing stage, it's going to be the Defusekids taking on Mad Lions Madrid. We're going to head on over to the casters.
Thank you, Koolein. My name is Stanley GreyHart Barker. I'm, of course, joined by the man you just saw, Marit's Chronicler Musin, and we have got a fantastic game coming your way.
And, you know, like, I want to take a short moment because we're gonna get into this game very quickly. But I'm so glad I get to cast with you again. And that's we talk about the teams here at European Masters, but it's also a bit of a reunion for all the casters and, you know, new friends, new faces. Gonna be very excited. And I'm, of course, hyped for my region, but I'm also looking forward to seeing a team from a league as good as Superliga Orange perform here.
We heard Woong saying there that he doesn't expect to see Mad Lions dropping any games through the group stage. Going to be a tough ask for DK in this first game of EUM play-ins.
I agree with you there. I think that if you be a betting man, you definitely go for like the odds are weird with Mad Lions. Like they are a team that has been dealing with possibly like arguably one of the strongest regions, at least the top 3 region within Europe. They have an amazing infrastructure behind them, and whereas Defusekids, their showings over the last few times that they were here weren't amazing. They were okay, but not enough.
Yeah, and they're coming off, both of these teams coming off on the back of disappointments in the stages of their own leagues as we get ourselves into pick and bans. One of the main things listening to you guys talking on the desk there was how you're talking about this is the future of the LEC. Players that we see here are definitely going to be, seen in the future. However, there was one player we've seen previously, the man with the most experience is going to be Werlyb up in the top lane for Mad Lions.
Yeah, and Werlyb, I'm going to be looking what champ, if they're going to prioritize him in pick and ban. The first ban is LeBlanc. We have a little bit of a graphical error, but that's just so you know. And that makes sense if you look at Hatrixx's incredibly aggressive play on that champion in his playoffs, had 100% win rate on, if I'm not mistaken. So we get a lot of mid lane bans there, and that also ties into what Woong was saying earlier. It's going to be that mid lane matchup that might be the most daunting for the Defusekids. We have now 2 mid lane bans already thrown there.
Yeah, the Xerath ban coming in response, taking that one away from Chapapi, as we see the Syndra there as well. Kalista, the next ban to come through. We've been seeing it both as ADC and as a top laner.
And I think that for the Defusekids, I don't expect them to play the top lane. I do know that Goose plays it, and the Senna does get banned here. So regardless of the nerfs to Senna and patch 10 point, I want to say 6, are still enough here. And that means that the Defusekids is going to go for the Aphelios, which is a comfort pick for Goose, but is something that he's had more varying consistency on, as opposed to his Lucian, which is kind of like his most tried and true champion. And Aphelios is a champion that needs some time to scale. So I'm going to be looking at what the response from Mad Lions is going to be if this Aphelios gets locked in. It is, of course, an incredibly strong champion.
Yep, it is almost definitely going to be locked in. Goose, known to be one of the main carries, as you're saying there, quite rightly, Chronicler, going to get themselves a hand on one of the most powerful champions in the game right now.
And Aphelios is, the general opinion on him is that he's got a lot going for him. He's got the team fighting power of an absolute star, and we might have some inconsistencies here with the champ play, but don't worry, we'll be everything will be fixed. We'll be keeping you up to date. And the Varus is a pick that has a lot of popularity in the LCK. As if I'm not mistaken, Werlyb picked up the Renekton here, which is a pick that Defusekids commonly bans because it is a hard matchup for a lot of Alois' champions.
Okay, well, we'll see what is prioritized in the rest of this first phase of the picks by Defusekids. They've got to show their hands a little bit now. Quite often we're known to see the ADC, the jungler, and the support coming through. Instead, it's going to be the Azir that's prioritized, even though it's going to enable potential counter pick coming in.
Yeah, with the Thresh, I do assume that it's going to be Thresh Aphelios playing versus Varus and the Nautilus, although we have seen Lethality Varus being played in the LCK as a counter to Azir, so there is still some flex potential coming out here from the Mad Lions. That Renekton pick, though, is something that the Defusekids is going to have to deal with. As I said before, it is a champion that even in the last playoff games, in the finals that the Defusekids played, Alois had a hard time dealing with, was then playing the Gangplank into it, which is not a fun matchup. As we see the Hatrixx ban come through here, and the Sejuani, because don't be mistaken, there are no junglers picked up here yet. And the Sejuani is interesting because the Defusekids haven't been prioritizing that for Hadess themselves, as the Olaf also gets taken away.
Okay, that's going to be a couple of junglers taken out of the pool. Looking at this Renekton, they've had the opportunity now to ban away some of the champions they didn't want to play that into. Hatrixx was clearly the key one that was in Mad Lions' mind. Here we have one last ban coming in for Defusekids. They've obviously got the opportunity, if they want to ban yet another mid laner, just to make life that little bit harder for Hatrixx.
And I do, there we go, it does go for the Cassiopeia, meaning that the Corki is still open, which is one of the most popular Corki Azir that has made a full return currently on the competitive stage. Now, the Ekko would be in a completely different kind of direction, and it does look like that is what Hatrixx is going to play, unless they want to flex it to jungle for Koldo, but considering that his Lee Sin, his Gragas are still open, I don't actually expect them to go for that. And of course, the Ekko is also one of the picks that can kind of bully the Azir if you're able to play around him. If you get on top of him and you're the parallel convergence, it's very, very bad news, as Hadess is going to be looking to pick up that Lee Sin, one of his comfort picks, although he has had like a varying performance on that. I feel like the second half of the split he performed better, but the Lee Sin is a bit of a risky pick, especially if you look at the composition that he's playing against, which has a lot of ways of kind of negating his impact and shutting him down.
Okay, well, we've got one last pick still to be picked up. Prime going to be locking in most likely a mid laner for Hatrixx. Interesting to see how little we've seen flex picks coming in here.
I mean, there's still the opportunity. I think that Ekko can go a number of ways. I still think that... So what you can do here, as the Gangplank does get picked up, meaning we'll get a Gangplank versus Renekton matchup, Alois will be playing weak side. And this does confirm, if they do go for the Gragas here, as they do, that we won't see any flexes coming out from Mad Lions. It's just going to be the Varus Nautilus bot lane. It's going to be Ekko in the mid lane against the Azir. And if I look at these two compositions, there's a lot of comfort here for Defusekids. This is basically the same comps that they run repeatedly in finals. But they do run into a problem, which has plagued Defusekids in their regular split as well, which is there's a lot of scaling in this composition. Gangplank needs at least 2 items to really be relevant, and he's going to be weak side against the Renekton. And then if you look at the Azir, is also not great at 6 with Emperor's Divide. You get some win though. And also the Aphelios, I don't expect him to really match the power of that Varus and Nautilus. So I think Mad Lions definitely have a composition here that allows them to punish the scaling from Defusekids very aggressively. So again, it's a Renekton that we're going to be seeing here. So Mad Lions really taking control in the first game here.
So coaches Aranea and Jeeves, I believe it is, have now done everything they can to try and help their two teams on to try and give them the best possible start here in the first game of play-ins. Remember, it is a double round robin, so these two teams will face off against each other again. However, it's so important to get that early win under your belt. 2 teams will go through from this group. Some people have predicted that these will be the 2 teams, so they're both going to want to get their best foot forward.
Yeah, I think Mad Lions predicting that they're going to make it is not the bravest call. That's pretty much expectations. I think for the Defusekids, it is a little bit more up in the air whether or not they're going to be the team to make it through. I see a lot of second, third places predictions for them. So either they're going to just make it or they're just not going to make it. I'm going to be looking at what Mad Lions is going to do. As I said, I feel like they definitely have a composition which allows you to heavily punish what Defusekids has done here, which is a composition with a lot of scaling. That early game should have a hard time matching the map pressure and just the sheer priority that comes out from the entirety of the lineup for Mad Lions here. And if Mad Lions can bounce back, because of course they did have a somewhat, for the expectations of the team, a somewhat disappointing playoffs run. And I expect them to come out of the gate swinging here and take a very convincing win. Because if I look at this team cup, once you get ahead, like the amount of go buttons you have the depth charge, you have the chains of corruption, you have Ekko can dive in deep, you have a Renekton, you have the Gragas. Like there's so many ways to get on top of someone like Goose. And traditionally, if Goose can play the game, that they have a really, really hard time. So I'm going to be saying I'd love for the Defusekids to win, but Mad Lions looking like the clear favorite, at least in terms of draft for me here.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. A lot of people, I'm sure, interested about how these groups were drawn out. Basically, everybody's name was in a pot. You can't play against a team from the same region as yourself. So it's almost completely random in terms of who can get drawn against. Mad Lions, probably quite happy with their group, but this is one of the real ones where they've got to show what they are made of. My eyes are going to be on Koldo. My eyes very much going to be on Koldo because he's playing this Gragas. We'll look to see whether or not he's running the Predator on it. His impactful games could really start the game off strong for the Mad Lions. And if Defusekids can't get anywhere near 25 minutes, being even vaguely level, it's going to be a very, very tough game for them.
And that's what I'm mainly worried about here, is that, as I said, early game, I do expect Mad Lions to have so much priority and so much opportunity to find leads and get ahead, that Defusekids is going to have to play a really clean defensive game. And looking at the finals, I don't really know if they can do that.
Okay, well, we've got ourselves just a small pause at the beginning of our first game. Completely fine, completely within the rules, so we just wait on that one to be resolved. Then we'll bring you all of the action on the Rift.
And I'm going to ask you as well, because of course, my predictions are, as you know, known to be notorious.
I wasn't even going to mention it. I thought I'll leave that one in the past, but you've called yourself out now. Your predictions in the past have sucked.
Well, that's I'd rather say they've been inconsistent, but I think,
I'd say they've been quite consistent, to be fair.
Not in a good way. Who do you think is going to take this?
I'm definitely looking at Mad Lions. It's been Mad Lions week, really, hasn't it? You look towards the LEC, what's been happening in the playoffs. They're on the back of one of the most incredible results we have seen in a very, very long time. And for me, I think that's enthusiasm, that energy is going to flow down into this team. I'm looking at them not only to take this, but to top this group and to be a really strong team pushing for the main draw of EUM.
And I'm really curious because I'm going to be looking at Hadess as well here, because we've already mentioned that mid lane matchup is one that might be a little bit of a risk for the Defusekids, but Hadess has also performed inconsistently. And of course, as a Benelux caster, I'm really going to be looking at how does the team that we've seen as the best in the region actually stack up against a team which has so much more going for them. And if we look at these individual matchups, like I saw the Renekton, versus Gangplank matchup played by the Defusekids with Alois on weak side in the finals, and it was not pretty. It was 4-5 deaths at the end of the game, I think, and that was against a team that wasn't able to punish as reliably as I expect Mad Lions to do so here.
Okay, we have still got ourselves a small pause. Technical difficulties coming in. Of course, everybody's having to deal with the ongoing events around the world in different ways, and it does mean it's a little bit more difficult to get ourselves smoothly into the games. But I'll tell you what, as soon as we do get ourselves into the game, there is going to be great action coming through. And I'm looking to see whether or not Mad Lions can provide the sort of early game that you seem to be promising us there, Chronicler.
It's mainly like just look at the team comps here, right? Like the thing is, if Mad Lions don't find an early or mid game lead, it doesn't necessarily have to be early, just to do mid game. Like pick up those Drakes, pick up some Heralds, pick up the plates early. Then I do think that the Defusekids, like with this kind of composition, they can do what they've done best, which is stall and stall and stall and just keep on stalling. And then rely on either Alois as a split pusher or against that entire the team fighting as a group. And leverage Goose, because that is the AD carry. That's the big carry for the Defusekids that they've been looking to so many times, to the point where if you look at what actually happened, is the Defusekids were losing a lot of games, and then they banned Jarvan for the rest of the split. And they were fine.
Yeah, sometimes it is as simple as that, just removing the one thorn in the side, and then you can start to perform to your absolute optimum. I think that we are pretty close to being able to get into the game. Here we go. We are on to the Rift for the first time here at the EU Masters play-ins, and we are going to be seeing Defusekids going up against Mad Lions from Madrid, and straight away we can see the nice steady defensive positions coming in from DK.
And what I'm very happy to see here is that we see the lethality Varus come out with the comment there, which makes a lot of sense against the composition from the Defusekids, because if you go in short range, you don't really have a front-to-back teamfight composition here as Mad Lions. And if you do get close to a Gangplank, if you do get close to the Azir, there's so much capability for them to get on top of you, the Lee Sin as well. And lethality Varus has been kind of having a small comeback as a pick. The Varus in general has remained popular, but this specific variety of it is exciting for me, as we see both junglers here going to start off on bot side.
Slow and steady start. That's how we like it, with both of the junglers looking to be starting on the bottom side of the map. We're not going to be opting into any kind of vertical jungling. We'll see where these two junglers look to try and get their priority early on.
And I'm going to be looking at the pathing of the Gragas here. Koldo, where does he go? Where does he prioritize his ganks? Is he going to go for a quick Predator? Is he going to go for a bit of a bigger clear? As we don't see any other really big surprises coming out in terms of runes. In terms of general play, you do expect the Azir to have the early level priority, because of course it's a ranged matchup into a melee matchup. But with that electrocute, as soon as you get a couple of levels for Hatrixx's Ekko in Sidewind, I expect him to not have a really hard time shoving that lane in and pressuring that Xerath. Although they do run both on teleport, which makes it a little bit easier to stay alive here for the Ekko.
Okay, we are going to see the slow, steady start that we like to see in competitive games. It's all well and good to have bloodthirsty starts, but actually getting the two teams just trading with just a little bit of their health bars is absolutely fine. One of the things I really liked there in the early game was the fact that it was a completely leashless start for the Lee Sin, and Gangplank actually faked towards the blue buff, making Mad Lions just that little bit more unsure as to where the opposition jungler was going to be starting.
And I ask myself the questions, do you want to be incredibly aggressive in the first game that you play in a best of one in your tournament? I kind of would have liked to see that, if I'm being honest. You know, just go for the 5-man invade. Does it make sense? Not necessarily. Would it be cool? Absolutely. And for us, I think that's all that really matters. But of course, not the smarter cards. We now see Koldo path up towards top side. Alois is in a position where he can be ganked, but especially with that wave that is going to be pushing towards Werlyb here. And I'm looking at Hadess, whether or not he's going to match Alois here and kind of shadow him, because he is going for the crap at the moment, meaning that Koldo might find an opening.
Might well do indeed. I've just got a little bit of lag on my stream, so if you can let us know what you're seeing at the moment, that'd be wonderful.
Currently looking at Hadess, making his way downtown. Picked up the Scuttle as we see an early teleport already coming through here for Chapapi, and that's not a good look. I'm already being forced to use that summoner, meaning that Hatrixx is going to have that TP advantage, which makes any subsequent bot lane plays a lot more threatening.
If you could keep on going for us, Chronicler, I know you're well versed in both play-by-play and colour, so you've got us covered here.
I mean, I'm you know, at least I still have your company, even though in the current situation we'll be fine. As we now see Koldo move down yet again. As he will be going there. Goose stepping far forward, does have the lantern available, who comes in there from Prime, and the flay there from Nightmares on 2 people. Now the hook back. Revenant gets used, but not enough damage here. Nice turnaround on the gank there, but not enough to actually pick something up. And the first gank forwarded here without the use of major summons. We see Ignite used by Prime, and Nightmares will have to be more careful now with his flash being burned. As we see the teleport coming from Werlyb on top side here. Stan, how are you doing, my man?
Oh, I've got a lovely screen around about the 3-minute mark showing me that Goose and Nightmares were happily farming down in the bot lane, but not getting a lot more than that just yet. We'll sort out with our production issues, but for now, let's focus on the game, and it's all about you, Chronicler.
Oh, thank you for giving me that attention. To see a gank from Hadess here down in the bot side. Not finding anything himself. No summoners forced either. As thus far, Defusekids is doing what they need to be doing. As mentioned previously, they are the team that is not on the timer here. They have a lot of scaling elements, a lot of comfort as well. This is the champions that they love to play. Is it going to be enough though? Because I'm not looking at like the early game. I'm also looking at the first item power spikes that come through, the 2 item spikes from champions like the Renekton. That might prove to be a really big problem. As we see Koldo now up on top side. Alois doesn't have a ward available. Does have a barrel, just now hit 6, has flash and is orange available. And the setup isn't really there for Koldo, as Alois is playing quite defensively here, keeping himself alive for the extended amount of time. Now 6 is hit, Dominus available. Koldo maybe waiting for the cooldown on his Predator boots before he wants to go, as there we see the stun come through. Body bop does found Alois, who uses the cannon barrage defensively, is going to hold on to his flash for now, will flash there. And that means that he gets away, but his summoner is forced. Dominus, however, also used. But Werlyb will be able to pick himself up a plate or 2 for his pressure. Although Alois looks to be like he wants to stay here. And that means that Defusekids is now able to counter that gank with a play, and they will be picking up an early Mountain Dragon here. And for a team that's not expected to make it through the early game unscathed, that's a really good start.
Pretty much ideal by the sounds of things, and frankly, it's nice to get to hear everything going on in such great detail, because now I've got a lovely black screen.
You know, but you're here with me, Stan. That's what really matters. I feel supported. I don't feel alone, and that's valuable in of itself to Werlyb to take a trade there that is unfavorable thanks to the turrets. And I gotta say, impressed here thus far with how Defusekids has been holding on, and the Mountain Drake in of itself might not be incredible relevant, because the extra armor and magic resist that it gives is not going to be incredibly big for the Defusekids, as they don't have any main tank on their roster, none of someone who's going to stack that up. But it does kind of shift the expected momentum of this game, because if Mad wanted to go for like a early dragon win condition, go for an early soul, they need to be picking up those early Drakes. And even if the Defusekids give up the next couple of Drakes, just the 5 minutes that this early mounted buys them, in of itself is really valuable, because if you can just stall the game out long enough, as mentioned previously, you play that clean as Defusekids, I think your composition is going to give you quite an edge. As we now see here, blue buff being picked up by Chapapi, and a relatively chill early game where neither team really finds a big lead. If we look at item spikes, we see the first couple of components getting picked up across the board. And no real action yet. I think once we're going to be hitting level 6, that might change as we see a double lane swap coming out from both the teams, which is to be expected with Rift Herald. Then for me, my question to you is, Stan, what's your favorite nickname for the Rift Herald?
I go in and out, but I've kind of settled on Herald these days because it sounds so close to Herald. And I'm still used to Shelly being the Scuttle Crab back in the old days. So I'm very much a Herald sort of person. And excited to tell you, I've got visual on the game. I just want to check I'm at the same time as you. I'm currently at 8 minutes and 45 seconds.
I'm a little bit ahead of you, but that's fine because you're going to be taking the action anyway. So that's completely okay.
It just means I'll be a couple of seconds behind the action, but hopefully that'll be okay for everybody who will be listening. As you can see, still no kills. Got that one dragon having gone over to DK. They're having a pretty good time of things so far, given how much pressure we expected them to be under.
And I'm going to be looking at Shelly here. If she does get picked up by the Defusekids, if they can hold it off long enough to not give Mad a lot of priority on their first Drake here, they're going to be in a really good position. If you don't lose those early plates, it's going to be a lot easier for you to keep the pace of the game low, not give the opportunity to Matt to snowball as Nightmares walks in there. That's a bit of a risky play, but it works out regardless. 4 people on the side of the map and no teleport for either top laner. As Hatrixx takes some poke there, but he will be fine. Koldo standing on top of the ward. It's being blocked, though, by the pink ward, meaning that he will be fine as they now walk into the river together. Not a lot of vision available here. We see Hadess and Chapapi will now spot them as there the Predator does come in. Death charge available, but they can't really go for it.
As you say, Gragas looking for that charge, and it shows me just how far I'm behind because I saw the Predator charge roughly 4 seconds after you had talked about it, but we do see the Herald being started up now by Mad. The question is, will DK be in any kind of position to contest this one? Nightmares has taken the blast cone over, he's lurking in the wings, is spotted out by Vision, being zoned off by the Nautilus. Does look like Herald is going to go down free and easy despite that Gangplank cannon barrage coming in.
And that's to be expected here. I don't think as Defusekids go in for that, trying to get a fight there would be a much bigger risk, especially because if you look at the health of the turrets, they're quite healthy, meaning bearing a dive, you don't expect them to actually get first turret blood, just a couple of plates with only 3 minutes left on the clock, which isn't great, but you're willing to take that.
It's overall pretty reasonable in terms of the trades that are being made across the board. I think that DK got to be pretty happy. Only to be even 100 gold behind at this stage is pretty much perfect. Not giving away first blood, which they almost certainly would have done had we seen Lee Sin diving in towards the Herald. But you'd expect someone of Hadess' class just not to be making mistakes like that.
As we see a skirmish here, Nightmares does go down there by the end. And that is going to be the Ignite Tick, taking him down. First blood picked up a attempt at finding a cheeky kill here, leads to possibly a first turret block going down, because now they can just start smashing this turret. There is no real help available, and it's going to be first turret block coming out here for Mad.
Yeah, all of those things just playing out absolutely beautifully for Mad Lions.
And that means that they are now on a pretty big 2k gold lead. And this is starting to look more and more like the kind of play that we did want to see coming out from them, as yet again though, Drakes does get started here. Hadess over the wall. Chapapi does walk over a pink ward there, and that means that they do give away the Drake that is being taken, but they will take that. There's really no possibility with Flakked and Prime both backing, Koldo not being anywhere near them. And that means that now we will have a Defusekids who has a 2 Drake advantage with an Infernal Soul coming right up. And that is not a bad scenario for them. That 2 Drake lead is going to mean that one of the big opportunities that knocked them out of the game, which would be get a really big Drake lead and threaten Elder, has now been delayed substantially.
Yeah, big 10-minute loss there for Mad Lions in terms of the tempo they might look towards in the mid game. And yeah, this is overall looking pretty good for DK. However, they've got to be careful not to give over any more kills. Of course, that first blood did end up going over to the Nautilus. Yes, Prime is a top player, but at the same time, not one of the big carries in this lineup for Mad that maybe you would have wanted to see that kill going over to.
That's kind of the saving grace, as you say. If we look at item spikes, we now see Werlyb able to pick up that Blade of the Ruined King. Hatrixx almost has his proto belt. Flakked now finds the Ghost Blade. So going for a little bit of movement speed and cooldown reduction as opposed to the Umbral Glaive, which is give more control around vision. We've seen both be picked up as a first item on that Lethality Varus. As we are looking at a Zeke's coming out here from Prime. And once those spikes are hit, I'm going to be looking at Mad Lions going for maybe a second Rift Herald or an aggressive play here as we see a 3v3 scenario coming up here on the bot side.
I'll leave you to this one because, again, I've got a bit of a freeze on my screen.
That's completely fine. I got your back, Stan, as you have had mine countless times before. And, of course, we are dealing with a added or a kind of an, sudden setup here. We're very happy to bring you the games, but as you might understand with the current situation as is, sometimes we're having some issues. We're hoping we can fix them as soon as possible. But if you might be wondering, hey, why isn't everything working perfectly? I can assure you, usually it does. And our production team, great as they are, is working hard to figure that out. Now, looking at the state of the game, we are approaching 14 minutes here. Still a 2k gold lead. Nightmares need to be careful. Channel comes through, flashes into the hook, uses the box there defensively. A really nice stopwatch. No teleports coming through. But here comes Hadess. Can the Barrage use the Festive Dash? Goose goes in. Flakked almost taken down. And the Ignite will be enough. And now Goose, as Chapapi makes his way over to Prime. Hadess still alive. And they find the outplay. It's a 3-for-1 trade here. Coming out from Defusekids, who now only are at a 1k gold deficit. Following a really important play because that takes out so much tempo here for Mad Lions.
Well, this is definitely looking slightly worse for them now. We're still just sorting out some small issues. I want to say, even though I'm having issues here, massive thank you to the wonderful people in our production who've even been able to put this together. And it's
well, that's yeah. No, I was being distracted by what was happening on your stream. Interrupting your very justified shout out to our production team who has worked tirelessly to make the stream work. Because let me tell you, 2 streams from my home setup. Not great. I'm currently on 15:10 on the dot. So that's hopefully you are there now with me, Stan.
You are about 3, possibly 4 seconds ahead of me, but I've got a. It's much better than it was. I am at least here. I'll take that one.
Okay, I'm glad. I don't want to be alone right now, as Defusekids is doing well and then doing a little bit less well, as they did give up 2 kills effectively for free to Hadess and Goose, getting too greedy, going for an aggressive play, and giving up some kills there.
Meanwhile, let's have a little look at some of these big items that have been complete. Both of the top laners with 1 core item. Now, of course, those items doing very, very different things. The potent damage that Alois is going to be able to do later on is absolutely huge. But right now, it's all about what the Renekton can do. Bullying down, as we do see Koldo coming down. Channeling is in a Gragas. He's going straight under the turret, going to immediately bop down onto Alois, and that is going to be another kill picked up. 5-3 now for Mad as they take yet another turret.
Unfortunate situation there, as Alois in a place where really not supposed to be, alone on the return without any proper coverage of vision. Not one of his team to kind of back him up, and that means it's free pickings. Gangplank, of course, notoriously easy to dive. And you have to dive the Gangplank. If you don't dive him, you're going to be in a world of trouble, as he will skill incredibly well. We see Alois now moving towards his, presumably his Essence Reaver. So he goes into Caulfield Wolfhammer next. And once he hits 2 items, he's going to be start to slowly get on kind of on par with Werlyb. But the 2 item spikes on the side of Mad are so much stronger, especially with this Lethality Varus that we haven't really talked about yet. But if you look at how these 2 teams scale into the mid game, there's still going to be so much opportunity for Mad here to make it work. And the Defusekids have been able to keep the game from snowballing out of control, but Mad is still making the moves that they need to, because if you look at like the sieging positions, it's really hard. What I would like to point out though is you can't give away this Infernal's Rake, and it doesn't look like Mad is going to.
Yeah, absolutely no chance of that one. The Herald obviously is available as well, with potential trades to be made, but this is looking pretty easy for Mad right now.
Yeah, because giving up that will mean that the Defusekids is so suddenly on sore points, and that's not good against a team where you're having a big lead, as we dare see aggressive Emperor's Divide not really leaning to anything, as Hatrixx says thank you very much, just dashes away from it. And now another Herald and a Drake picked up, and this is the mid game that we were looking for here coming up from Mad, as they are the team who needs to make the move now, and they haven't been doing so. And this is the time for them to snowball the game in the next 5 to 10 minutes, because after that, Defusekids is just naturally going to scale into an absolute terrifying team to deal with. Once you hit those second, third item spikes, as Chapapi does get taken low there, needs to be careful, doesn't have Emperor Divide.
He's trying to find his way out of trouble. Again, just slightly behind you on this one, but seeing just how much damage comes through there to Chapapi. But he's able to dash himself out of the way with a little Shurima shuffle, though.
And that's the problem, like now with Hatrixx having the Lich Bane available, having the Pro about 2 items spike if in, Werlyb almost has his Black Cleaver, Flakked is going towards a second lethality item. That's really when the team of Mad is going to start hurting, and that's when the Defusekids can't afford any mistakes like we saw earlier. Alois getting picked off on his own in the side lane. Goose and Nautilus trying to find a 2v2 kill, then not finding a death sentence and then getting taken out. Those are the kind of plays that you can't afford. But at the same time, Mad need to push the envelope here. They can't afford to sit back.
Definitely not. So much damage will come through in the late game from this Defusekids team, and you could argue that this 3,000 gold lead maybe not quite enough for getting through this early game. Maybe Mad would have wanted more. We've seen DK picking up their first turret, a lot of gold being put onto the Aphelios, who's already got the Essence Reef completed. But again, Alois is just completely caught out in between turrets this time. Depth charge is going to be there. Cannon barrage coming down for a little bit of zone, but Alois is absolutely bopped. He manages to keep himself alive by eating an orange. Here comes the teleport. That's going to be the useful ultimate coming in from Chapapi as he looks for yet more damage. Here comes yet another contender, and the Mad Lions are falling all over the map as Lee Sin comes in and finishes off yet another one. Koldo is there, prime flashed himself away. Koldo eventually dying to the Azir as Flakked takes the blast cone to safety.
And this is atrocious for Mad Alliance. This is terrible and exactly what they don't want to happen, because here you see what they want to do. They want to punish the Gangplank, and that's the right instinct. They need to be doing these, making these aggressive plays. But they, one, underestimate the amount of time that Alois can stall there with the flash, with the orange, and with his cannon barrage. They overextend onto the second turret, not just kind of accepting, okay, flash is used, we gotta back off here. Instead, they dive very deep between two turrets, don't really have any way besides going through the jungle. And now Chapapi's Azir is, even with the Ekko, thanks to the kills that he was able to pick up, also the biggest bounty in the game. And once that Azir can just freely hit away at Mad, they're going to have such a big issue, because there's not really anyone who can deal with the reliable poke that's going to come out. And if we look at how these two team comps are going to continue to play in the mid-later stages of the game, Mad will always have an opportunity to make big plays because of the amount of hard engage they have available, combined with the reliable poke of that lethality Varus. But if you look at the damage and the scaling on the side of the Defusekids, eventually they're just going to have so much damage, unless you execute absolutely perfectly as Mad Lions, you're going to be in a really big problem, not to speak of the fact that Alois is going to win that side lane eventually. And once that happens, your game becomes so much harder. As Parallel Convergence does get used there.
Final outer turret has fallen as Mad Lions take down in the mid lane. They are absolutely just trying to get as much of this gold in their pocket as they can. They've played this composition pretty well up until that dive that we saw under the bot lane inhibitor turret. However, now we do see DK. They've got the opportunity to show how well they can play their comp as they stall the game out even longer.
And now the bot lane turret going down as well. The Defusekids is here.
I'm going to leave the this one too, because I think I'm quite a few seconds behind.
And I got to say, regardless of the outcome of this game, I don't think this is what people would have expected coming to this game. It definitely isn't what I would have expected, because the Defusekids is a team that has been notorious for the inconsistency, whereas Mad is a team that is really the clear favorite in this group. And if you look at how these matches played out so far, it's not a clear favorite against an underdog that's just barely hanging by. There's 800 gold difference here at 22 minutes between the two teams. The Defusekids are up a Drake, and that's not a good situation for Mad to be in, and they're going to feel the pressure as well coming into the favorite. If you don't fall behind it, because yes, they still have a gold lead, but it's not a good position to be in if you're expected to show against a team from a minor region. There's a reason that the Bandlux got knocked down from a guaranteed group spot like they used to have to a playing spot. And this next team fight is going to be absolutely crucial. As I assume, Stan, you're still not with me. You are with me in spirit, but not at the time.
I am with you in spirit, but not with you in terms of the video that I am seeing. But thank you for doing such a wonderful job here. You're carrying us through this one, and as always, just doing great work.
As now the Infernal Drake does get started up here, we do see Hadess making his way over, kind of giving a free leash. Parallel Convergence gets used aggressively. Nice sidestep from Nightmares. As they do need to find actual access. Both teleports are up here for the players in the top lane. As we do see the Drake going down and down.
How many seconds are you at right now?
23.5, but hold me there because we see Hadess going down, and that means no smite. Cannon Barrage does a lot of damage, so at least they traded for a kill. Emperor's Divide used defensively. Chapapi almost gets sniped away there as Nightmares and him are now on their own, and this team fight going absolutely atrocious for Defusekids. They give up the second Infernal Drake, they lose the subsequent team fight, and they trade 3 for 1. Not an ideal situation.
Well, I get the opportunity almost to see an instant replay here because I've heard what went down and now I'm seeing the action, and from the second the Cannon Barrage went down and Lee Sin was killed off by the Varus, things just went from bad to worse for DK.
Hatrixx now in the side lane. This is the kind of place that Mad Lions need to find. The gold lead, not that big, but it's more about the tempo that you generate here. Deny that soul points to Defusekids. Keep using the power spikes of your champions as you're currently hitting them. As we see Flakked building towards what I assume is going to be a Knight's Edge to avoid any funny business from Chapapi. As we do now see going towards the 24-25 minute mark. Definitely still a winnable game for either team. Definitely a throwable game for either team here as well. There is a clear favorite.
Just going to say that hopefully I might possibly be slightly back in this one. We'll see how it goes. I'm just watching a blue buff being taken.
Yes. 24-30 right now.
Yeah, again about 4 or 5 seconds behind you. So I think for these fights, if you call them and then I'll come in after.
That sounds good. We have we might not have an actual replay here, but we have you doing the instant replay, which is valuable in its own way. I really appreciate that for that, Stan.
Well, always glad to be a part of it, and just annoyed that I can't make it work slightly better. But again, thanks massively to the production who have been absolutely brilliant so far. Team working this event.
And now we're getting into awkward territory here, because if you look at how these two team comps kind of want to conduct themselves going into the later stage of the game, you're going to be looking at Mad. They're going to be the ones who try and make the play. They have all the hard engage buttons. And that also means that they need to, like we saw there at Drake, they need to be the ones who have priority, who set up the play. Because if you look at the rest of their itemization, it's not going to be as big as spikes as it is for the Defusekids. Alois now hitting that second item, also picks up the Hex Shrink, which is understandable, again, the amount of burst. And the Gragas, combination with the Varus, in combination with the myriad of hard engage that Matt has here, is going to need to carry them through. And if they don't do that, if you allow the Defusekids to kite back with this composition, to use the Emperor Fight defensively, to use the box, to use that Dragon's Rage, the Cannon Barrage, always a way to draw out this fight, you're going to be looking at a really big problem because, yes, Matt has a lot of burst, and there's not a lot of tanky champions on the side of DK, but if they can deal with that initial burst, if they can survive it, can dodge it, can mitigate it, then they're going to have an issue, whereas the Defusekids, they have consistent damage in spades, while Alois is 1v1ing Hatrixx here. Not going great, as the push does come through here, and the Defusekids unable to defend their mid lane and their top lane turret. Continuing snowball coming out of from Mad.
Yeah, Mad doing exactly what we would expect of them.
So how's your stream coming along, Stan?
Well, I think we may have got closer to a potential solution. What time are you at?
I am currently at 39.
Oh, well, we're within 2 seconds of each other. I think that's the closest.
I'll take it.
That's the closest we've been in years.
I'll take it, Stan. I really appreciate you sticking with me throughout all these time travels. And of course, you are in the UK. I am not like we used to be. And maybe that's, the small difference that we have there.
Yeah, name that thing that shouldn't be talked about. Blame the thing that the UK decided to do. But anyway, moving swiftly on. Nightmares here, just clearing out the vision as he has been doing all game long, doing a solid job of it. The Thresh is a champion he's so synonymous with, and we expect these sort of standout performances, but we're still looking for that one key hook.
And I'm also going to be looking at Nightmares' lanterns here. Maybe his re-engages in teamfights, because like I said, I expect these teamfights to go with a couple of poke, or a bit of poke coming out here from Mad Lions, then pulling the trigger, and then it's all about how does Defusekids react? Can they keep Aphelios safe? Can Goose actually auto-attack? And Alois is starting to become an absolute juggernaut now. He's building towards the Maw of Mormortius, and eventually he's going to be able to just shred through the entirety of Mad, even if they do take down the Aphelios. And all these three big late-game threats for Defusekids are going to have to be answered, but the split push from Hatrixx here is just really hard to deal with.
We do just see vision being traded over back and forward. The third Infernal Dragon just about to spawn as we see Hatrixx putting pressure down, and this Lichbane proc coming through already. Half health taken away from that turret.
Alois able to kind of hold his own. I think once more gets finished, once he gets a little bit more resistances, maybe in the form of something like a GA, as we see the engage come through.
I'm going to let you have this because I think I had a bit of a lag out on the bot lane.
As we there see an absolutely gorgeous flank coming out from Hatrixx, who immediately blows up Goose. Now Alois joins the fight, but it's too little too late. And we mentioned previously, if Goose can play the game, Defusekids are not looking good. A crucial fight here from Mad Lions, because they can now get their own sword point. They're moving towards 4 Infernal Drakes, and with a composition like theirs, that damage is just invaluable, as the Defusekids are just falling short. And that is such a dangerous point where we saw Goose standing there. You're looking for the team fight, and all of a sudden Ekko flashes over the wall, uses his dash, uses his proto belt, and you know you're as good as gone.
Yeah, basically a 2 for nothing, and the extra Infernal going over to Mad. Not only so much close to Soul, but all that extra damage coming through from the Assassin Ekko that's now 5-0-3.
You know, we might be aware, everyone, if you just tune in, that there might be some issues. We're hoping to fix them as soon as possible. Are working from a bit of a, home setup as opposed to the gorgeous studio that we usually have. So any inconsistencies, follow through from that. Now, looking at the game state, 30 minutes here. We have ahead Mad Lions. They have the priority. They were able to pick up the 3rd Infernal Drake, but it's still within reach here. If Goose can stay alive, if they can deal with Hatrixx finding a flank onto that backline, if they can deny backline access, they fight a clean team fight, and they kite back against the burst and hard engage from Mad Lions. Defusekids still has a shot here, but it's looking increasingly dire.
Certainly the consistent DPS will be coming out of DK in these fights. They've just got to survive long enough. The peel, like you say, going to be so crucial, getting themselves the opportunity to keep Goose alive, to keep Alois alive as well. They are the 2 key roles we talked about in Champ Select, about how this game was lost.
And now we see here, push yet again coming through. Both teams just throwing the waves to one another. Not a lot of action happening here. Are you still with me, Stan?
I'm going to...
You are?
Say no on this one.
No?
I can hear your audio, not got the video right now.
That's fine. I just was, wondering. Sometimes I'm worried that you might have left me, but I always love the reassurance that you gave me. Now 4k gold deficit here. And the threat here of the Defusekids finding a sneaky Baron seems almost negligible with the amount of coverage that should be there. The last time we saw this 1v1, it did not go well. Never mind, the Defusekids are starting up the Baron here in full vision of Mad Lions, who say, no thank you, we will not be letting you take the Baron.
Yeah, they could
be all she wrote in that one.
Yeah, just seeing them quickly zoning away there. And while all of this is going on, we've still got Hatrixx hard pushing in the bot. Alois only just able to deal with the Ekko.
And I'm looking at how well Hatrixx is playing this game so far, because he does have a triple Inferno, so his burst is absolutely crazy. Now, also picked up the Zhonya's Hourglass, so his outplay potential is there with how short the cooldown on all of his skills are. And if Alois can't start winning that 1v1 at some point, can't start actually moving up and applying pressure, it's going to be a really hard one, as Hatrixx is waiting in the wings. There comes Parallel Convergence. It's
all yours.
I keep giving it over to you and expecting you to finally be there with me, Stan, but you're just not. And I gotta say, it really hurts my feelings. You know,
I mean, now you know how I felt when you left me, you know, to go back to the Benelux.
Oh, that's actually, you know, that's fair. I'll take that hit. As we now see her coming through there. So much damage on Hadess. Has the Lantern, but can't even get to chain CC there, giving up a free kill, and that might mean a Baron. Although Alois is fighting with Hatrixx here. There comes Chapapi going through, teleport, and ultimate still available for Hatrixx. Won't even need to use it, just can dash away. And with the jungler gone, I think we're going to see Mad go for a Baron here, as the gold lead is just too much. And these little mistakes from the Defusekids, Hadess getting caught there, a little bit too many kills getting given over to their opponents is going to mean the end of it. Although we do see a cannon barrage coming through here. And that's an interesting one. With Baron at 7k HP, we see Nightmares coming in, and actually the teleport will get used to Chapapi making his way downtown. As Nightmares does find a lot of damage on Prime. Baron not actually yet gone. Moonlight Vigil used defensively there. A lot of damage on Flakked. Hatrixx does get immediately exhausted. They do find the Baron Nashor. Can they get over the wall though? A lot of flashes had to be used there, but in the end, Mad able to get out, only give up a kill, and pick up that objective.
Yeah, that's absolutely... got themselves a 3k, a 6 lead, a 3-kill lead as well. They are so close to picking up the Infernal Soul as well. Immediately upon getting that Baron, surely they're going to reset and look towards the Drake.
And now my question for the viewers is, are you going to take the risk of fighting against a team with Baron, which, you know, doesn't sound great, or are you going to give them Infernal Soul, which sounds much worse? I'd say take your chances and take the team fight, try to deny them the soul. But it's not a choice you're going to feel great about, because you're fighting against a team with Baron buff that is also a solid 6k gold ahead. It's not great.
Okay. Looking for the...
As we seem to have lost you there, Stan. Chapapi and Hadess doing a great effort. Emperor's Revive used defensively. Can they burst it down? Yes, they can. Sneak away the dragon. The Defusekids there. Cannon Barrage used defensively. Nightmares has to flash over, but they keep themselves in the game for a little bit longer.
Yeah, not too sure if you can hear me, but that was so crucial for DK to be able to get that one, denying Elder being on the board 5 minutes time.
And here now Depth Charge used on Hadess will get tagged. Can he get to the Lantern? Last time the answer was no, and this time the answer is also no, as he will get taken down. He draws attention for a little bit, but now here comes the death push. Alois has to get back to his base. They need to defend. There's one wave crashing into the turret. That ball inhibitor surely has to be gone, because they can't clear the waves fast enough there. Goose now with his fourth item on the way. First item finished, fourth item on the way. Here now, their bot lane turret is gonna be long gone. As we do see Lethal Temporal proc there, it's not enough here. Bot lane inhibitor goes down, and Mad is looking to take their first win. Maybe not as decisively as we would have thought, but they are looking good here. Flakked gets hit, but he has Edge of Night, so he couldn't care less. As we see another inhib now going down. Mad Lions using the power that Baron Nashor gives them. And the problem with the composition, sorry for interrupting you, so the problem with the composition is the case, they don't have a go button.
It's so long to get to the stage, but now Mad Lions really putting on the pressure as soon as they picked up the Baron.
That's Flakked to Alois. That's not good.
Big kill being picked up for DK, keeping themselves alive just a little bit longer. Every time you think Mad are going to close this one out.
And that's what really worries me, if I'm being entirely honest. Because if you keep playing this game, eventually, just by the power of their comp, as Hatrixx does find Goose now. Goose, nice sidestep. Just want to keep going. Hadess here now as well. Parallel Converge available. Hatrixx on his own does have the ultimate available. The Defusekids need to really be careful. But they're not going to chase it. They don't want to take the risk. And in the end, it's going to be just a kill there for DK. Now, 36 minutes into the game. The gold lead 6k, which is big, but not insurmountable. But it is looking like Mad does have the execution that they need to finish this game. The threat of Hatrixx finding Battling Asses is just too big. Flag there. Dying is unfortunate, but not a big problem, as the Baron was already about to run out. And now we see, I think the next objective is going to be that crucial Infernal Soul. We've gone to 6 dragons, 36 minutes, without finding a single soul for either team. Both teams now at soul point. One more Drake, and then Infernal Soul is in the pocket.
You would have to assume that one is going to go over to the Mad Lions, and then they will look to try and finish off this game, which so far they've been unable to do. Full credit to DK for hanging in the way they have.
Yeah, it's like I said, it defies expectations. It's starting to look like the result of this game will be the same as we initially expected, which will be a Defusekids loss and a Mad Lions win. But the way in which it happens is something that Defusekids can take solace in. Mad Lions fans might be a little bit worried. And whether or not this is going to continue throughout the rest of the tournament, of course, it's too early to be said. We can't really tie such grave consequences to a first game here. Both teams might also be having some early first game jitters. But now without Baron buff, it's actually a lot harder. We do see the poke from Flakked not being super relevant on people like Nightmares. And if he doesn't find the backline reliably, then Varus, Lethality, of course, not going to be as good in teamfights as Cannibalize gets used. Look at the damage coming through. Does force the flash from Koldo. You know, inhibitor fairly low. Not taken down yet, though, so the defense does come through here, but we see the I need help pinks coming through here from Hadess, and don't forget, it's all or nothing here. If they lose this next inhibitor, the third one, I think they're going to have a really, really big issue. 2 objectives about to come up here. And we will find ourselves in a situation in which there might be a possible trade of objectives unless Mad have crisp timing and are able to pick up both for the price of one. And if that happens, if they get Saw and Baron, I think this game is as good as over. I don't think, even with the scaling that DK has, there's anything you can really do at that point.
It's not looking good for the Benelux team at the minute. This is going to be the Spanish team who are absolutely dominant. Of course, they've got Werlyb, but they're in the top lane. So much of a real resource that they're able to use there. Someone with experience at the absolute top.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a player like Hatrixx, someone who has been able to consistently find the enemy backline. Now has a full build with the Void Staff. So poke coming through, and DK also knows we can't give this up, but look at the lanes pushing in, mid lane, getting really hard shoved in. Hatrixx now going to go for a back, or not. In the end, still going for it. A 50-50 might be the end-all outcome here for Defusekids. Werlyb, though, trying to look for the flank, and if they get taken down here, it's all over for Defusekids. Nightmares has to use the box defensively. There's not any help available, and there goes Hadess in incredibly deep. There is the Emperor's Divide, but that's not enough. Chapapi can't get over the wall. There feels the flash. Damage now coming through. They can deal with Werlyb. Nightmares and Goose still alive. Infernal Soul does get picked up, but if they lose the fight, it might still be in for a heap of trouble. You don't want to take a risk. Nightmare over the walls. This is a big risk you're taking. Does find the hook, and now Goose can go for those auto attacks. Prime is tanky, but maybe not that tanky. Chapapi gets 1v1, goes in aggressively. Goose finds a sidestep. It's still the 2 of them. Hail of Arrows is not found, but now Hatrixx is making as well. Look at that lethality arrow. More than enough damage, and Goose, you can't get away from that Ekko. In this extended skirmish, Mad find all they wanted. Alois now on his own against 3 people. Infernal Soul taken down. And surely this will be the end of Mad Lions versus Defusekids.
That was an incredible fight to watch. So much happened in so little time. The extended fight in the end does lead to Mad weeping opposition themselves the soul. If they want to go look at the Baron, they can do, but at the end of the day, they're probably just going to be able to run it straight down and end.
Yeah, I don't expect there's anything that you can really do here as Defusekids. Look at Flakked and Prime actually going in this aggressively as well without any help, but they just want to end the game. Teleport does come in as well. As there we see the Nexus open now. Nothing that Defusekids can do. They gave it their all. They came fairly close, but in the end, this is going to be the clear favorite who will be able to take the game here. And in the end, find their expected win over the plays of Defusekids.
Game number 1 of the EU Masters plays comes to a close and is going to be one of the highly favoured teams, the Mad Lions from Madrid, coming in absolutely dominant.
And I think we saw the performance that we expected coming out from Mad. If you look at the individual performance, a player like Hatrixx who found countless backline dives there, the executions on Goose, who is one of the main carries that does come through here for the Defusekids. The neutralization of Alois, who was able to get some impact. You saw how deadly those cannon barrages were, but with how big the lead was on the Ekko, how reliable the hard engage threat was from Mad, I don't see a way in which after how they found that mid-game lead, Defusekids can come back for that. And this is a problem that we've seen as well. This is why Defusekids has been Jarvan repeatedly, if Goose can't play the game, let's be honest, against Lethality Varus combined with 3 hard engage champions, it's going to be really hard. It's so much harder for them to reliably perform, and that means that we will see a win coming through here from Team Mad Lions, as you said. It hurts about Benelux hard, but I do feel like it was the deserved winner.
Well, we're going to break down that game just a little bit more shortly. We're going to cut to a small break. Before we do, massively apologise to those of you who maybe were affected by not having the quite the normal stream coming through there, courtesy of the small technical difficulties that I was having. But a massive thank you to our production and also to you, Chronicler, for an absolutely incredible performance. Let's cut to a small break and then we'll be back with the analyst desk.